This video is titled Saving the Republic, the concept of Christian constitutional societies. Well, Alexander Hamilton, a founding father and one of the authors of the Federalist Papers, made this observation of the providences of God. For my own part, I sincerely esteem it a system which without the finger of God never could have been suggested and agreed upon by such a diversity of interest. What's the system he's talking about? The American constitutional system. He went on to say this: let an association be formed to be denominated the Christian Constitutional Society. Its object to be, first, the support of the Christian religion, and second, the support of the United States. Let's break down these two segments that Alexander Hamilton names. First, to support and study the Christian religion. A Christian constitutional society would take a look at these elements: a biblical worldview, unalienable rights from God, 4 areas of governance, the 10 Commandments as a moral code, self-government governed from the heart, the purpose of civil government, and the founder's view. And let's sample a few of these things now. Well, let's take a look at this painting titled Embarkation, and it's the pilgrims as they begin to set forth for religious freedom. As we look at this picture, there's several elements that we can see that are foundation to the American psyche in the American experiment. First, they had faith. They were looking heavenward. They looked to God and they trusted Him. They had morality and they looked to the Bible and they looked for and applied biblical principles to all of life. Family. You can see wives and children in this picture, and they came as families, the very building blocks of society where values are passed on through the home. Liberty, you can see a set of armor lying in the foreground. They came for religious freedom and civil freedom and equal justice under the law. God's providences, you can see a rainbow in the left-hand corner representing God's covenant and His divine providence. And prayer, they thanked God and prayed for God's guidance and that they would be but stepping stones for future generations. These elements are reflected in the largest granite statue in the United States, the National Monument to the Forefathers in Plymouth, Massachusetts. In the area of unalienable rights, we hear Alexander Hamilton describe them this way: they are not to be rummaged for among old parchment or musty records. They are written as with a sunbeam in the whole volume of human nature by the aid of the divinity itself, and can never be erased or obscured by mortal power. Alexander Hamilton is saying our rights come from God and cannot be obscured by any earthly power. In the 4 areas of governance, the Pilgrims discovered these concepts: that an individual was called by God to be self-governing, self-responsible, that the family unit was to be a unit of God's building block for society where love, care, provision, and children and education and a legacy would take shape and form. That the church had a responsibility for inspiration, encouragement, accountability, and evangelism and discipleship, and that the civil government's purpose was protection and justice, to restrain evil and allow good to flourish. And so in this area of self-responsibility, the 10 Commandments was the starting place. That the 10 Commandments contained the first 4 elements in our relationship with God: no other gods before me, no idols, don't use the Lord's name in vain, and remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. The 5th element, being honoring your mother and father, would be the elements you could build a legal code from. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not give false witness, and do not covet. There's a flow to these things. If you look at them, do not murder. The element there is the protection and value of life. Do not commit adultery. The element there is the value of human sexuality and the family. Do not steal is an economic principle. Free markets cannot operate effectively with stealing. Do not give false witness means truth needs to be heard. And then do not covet ultimately deals with the human heart. Well, speaking of the human heart, the fruits of the Spirit are actually the elements for the ultimate self-governing individual. The fruits of the Spirit are listed as love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, and against such things there is no law. And so what this is saying here is a Spirit-filled believer is a person that does not even bump up against the Ten Commandments because they are truly controlled from within, and these are the fruits that exist in their life. A Christian constitutional society would also study the biblical purpose of government. For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right, and he will commend you. The essence of this is God's purpose for civil government, to restrain evil and to encourage good. So the founders knew this, and a couple of reflections they had on this concept. Self-government means governing ourselves. We stake the whole future of American civilization not on the power of government, but on the capacity of each and every one of us to govern ourselves according to the Ten Commandments of God. John Adams, there is no government armed with power which is capable of contending with human passions if those passions are not bridled by morality and religion. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people and is wholly inadequate for the government of any other. So, a Christian constitutional society on focus area of 1, the study of the Christian religion, would understand and master these things. But let's take a look at the second part of a Christian constitutional society, the support of the United States. Well, the support of the United States means understanding our unique system of government that's unique in all the world. It would include the fact that Christians are the best positioned individuals to understand the concepts, understanding the nature of man, understanding that the Declaration appeals to the Creator and the purpose of government, that the Constitution protects the rights articulated in the Declaration, that the constitutional system of the United States distributes power vertically also down through the states, and that the Bill of Rights has additional unalienable rights that come from God. And the founders had thoughts on these things. So again, let's sample some of the things that a Christian constitutional society would master. The nature of man. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. The founders knew the nature of man. If men were angels, no government would be necessary, James Madison said. Thomas Jefferson said this, it would be a dangerous delusion were confidence in the men of our choice to silence our fears for the safety of our rights. It is jealousy and not confidence which prescribes limited constitutions to bind down those whom we are obliged to trust with power. In other words, because of man's sinful nature, we need to control the people that we put in civil power by the chains of a constitution that would limit their ability to exercise power over their fellow human beings. Again, unalienable rights given by God are declared in our Declaration. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. At the end of the day, these rights are granted by the Creator, and this can be talked about and advanced in Christian constitutional societies. The Declaration of Independence is unique in all the world. No other country in the world has a document that is a statement of unchanging principles that are true for all people at all times in all places everywhere. The reason that this is the case is because they're biblical principles. Government's only purpose, only purpose is to protect these rights, these God-given rights, and to restrain any wickedness that would violate those rights. So the Declaration of Independence serves as kind of our purpose document in the United States, and the U.S. Constitution is kind of our organizational document, and they go together. You see, the Constitution serves the principles of the Declaration. When we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, then the Constitution serves to protect those things. You see, the Declaration is the life of our country. It gives life. It's the creator. And the Constitution serves the Declaration like a rib cage protects a heart. It protects the life. So the biblical concepts that a Christian Constitution Society might understand are these: that God has established universal and unchanging truths, that God created people in his image, that God gives humankind dignity and freedoms, that God gives rights, not governments, that God values human life, that God values liberty and freedom of conscience, that God made people to enjoy life and pursue their dreams, that God is ultimately the authority in the world, that government and political leaders will be judged for their actions, and that God is trustworthy, that God is active in world events, and that people can live for something greater than themselves. The Declaration, Constitution, and Bill of Rights work in tandem, and their inspiration is the biblical principles that come from the Bible. As we look at the expanded unalienable rights list that our founding fathers declared in our founding documents, it would include these we've seen already: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but add to that religious beliefs, religious practice, speech, press, the freedom of assembly, to petition our government, to self-defense and family defense, to steward private property, to have economic self-determination, to have equal justice under the law, speedy justice, and a voice in passing laws and electing leaders. Our founding documents declare all of these are unalienable rights given to us from God. And finally, something a Christian constitutional society would understand is that the U.S. constitutional government is a system. It includes a vertical separation of power. It's a republic of state republics, of county republics, of self-governing individuals. The U.S. constitutional system is an entire system. It's just not the federal government, it's the whole system itself. This vertical separation of power is possibly the most important part of the American constitutional system because it keeps government close to the people that are being governed. Well, George Washington said this about God's providences: "No people can be bound to acknowledge and adore the invisible hand which conducts the affairs of men more than the people of the United States. Every step by which they have advanced to the character of an independent nation seems to have been distinguished by some token of providential agency." Thomas Jefferson said this when it comes to forgetting God and his principles and providences: "God who gave us life gave us liberty. And can the liberties of a nation be thought secure when we have removed their only firm basis, a conviction in the minds of the people that these liberties are the gift of God, that they are not to be violated but with his wrath? Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just and that his justice cannot sleep forever." Well, Alexander Hamilton started this. Let an association be formed to be denominated the Christian Constitutional Society. Its object to be, first, the support of the Christian religion, second, the support of the United States. This means that a Christian Constitutional Society would study and support the Christian religion and master these areas. This also means that a Christian Constitutional Society would support the United States and master the concepts of these founding documents and the biblical principles that are embedded in them. Well, preacher man and Christian leader, how is your church teaching these truths? What about forming a Christian Constitutional Society, a Salt and Light team, a Community Impact team, a Statesmanship Institute, a Biblical Citizenship Training Center? It doesn't matter the name, but Christians can be the ones advancing the kingdom of God and saving our constitutional republic that was founded on biblical principles. My name's Craig Seibert. Thanks for listening.